Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special stream here for us at our local establishment. Unlike many of the other things that we offer you guys here, this is a very special moment because it is Mental Health Awareness Month in the month of May, as you can kind of see my screen behind me, making us very aware of that. And I am joined here today by two very good friends of mine that we're going to be talking a little bit about our struggles with mental health, talking a little bit in general, and showing places you can reach out to, and knowing that you can also reach out to friends like us as well too. We're always there for you guys. I am Bobby Munson. Right beside me, the natural Astrid Pizarro. Hello, Astrid. How are you doing?
No. Doing better now that I get to be here with you guys doing something a little bit different from my usual stuff.
Yeah, definitely different. And speaking of, we did one back in January for talking about weight loss journey. And on that journey, I was joined by just below us there, Melball. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
I am doing amazing, my friend. Continuing on with our, losing our weight. I've been hitting the gym, and man, we're going to be talking about it today because it is a major part of my mental health stability. Bobby, how are you doing this week?
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, Mental Health Awareness Month couldn't come at a better time because I have had some struggles recently, of course, too. I have had struggles in my daily life with my job. It's been very, very, rough at times to getting through it. Lack of staffing and stuff like that too, more work being put on individuals, and just the time frames that are expected nowadays from everybody to get certain amounts of work done. It becomes harder and harder, and it doesn't stem from work. It didn't all start from work for me, and I will get more into that as we go. And again, very related to, and I will put the link up here somewhere for everyone to go back and watch our weight loss journey episode of Love Your Health that we did earlier in the year. A lot of the time that has been a major factor in that as well too, because sometimes when mental health gets the best of you, you find coping mechanisms, and sometimes going back to old habits like eating habits and not exercising, you can fall into those traps. So we will talk a little bit about that. But for anybody right now, if you are struggling with mental health in any way, shape, or form, and trust me, they do say statistically that by the age of 40, at least 50% of all people in North America will have had or dealing with a mental illness of some sort. You're not alone, not at all. As you see, the three of us are on here. We're going to share stories. We're going to talk to you guys. There are helplines out there. And speaking of those helplines, this morning I was actually contacted by a close friend of ours as well too. I'm not going to say the name on screen for protection because I didn't have necessary permission to say that. But reached out to me today, wanting me to make sure that I made a video that we could be used within streams here at OLE. Said it would be very beneficial to let people know about the helplines that are out there for them. This person themselves was really battling with some mental issues within the last couple of days and everything like that. And I went as far as even giving out my number and saying, look, you're a friend, your family. If you ever need anyone, reach out, because you know what, I'll put down what I'm doing. I don't care. Like, I don't want to lose people for these kind of problems when we can just talk it out. And that's why I'm glad you're both here with me today. Before we get into everything though, I just want to play a quick 30-second video for everybody that's going to give you some of the helplines that you can reach out to here in order to help yourself. These are going to be ones very focused within Canada and the US. There is some national ones. If you are international, though, outside of the North America, there are helplines for you too out there. And we hope that you'll reach out to somebody very soon. Here's the video though. So that's some of the very few amount of the many lines that are out there, and the people that are waiting to be able to, talk to you, give you advice, and be able to try to help you through the tough times, no matter what they are. Sometimes it's hard to identify what they are. It's taken me years to cope with some of them myself too, and it's worth talking to people because people care. People really do. And so where I want to start though here today is just talking about some of our own experiences with mental health, and only as comfortable as anybody is about going into it and everything like that. You don't have to go into all details, but as much as you're open about talking. Astrid, let's start with you. You yourself have coped with some mental health and anxiety problems, and I just want to get a little background on that, where these started, or what you're comfortable sharing for stories about how you've dealt with it and how it's affected your life.
I think the first time I ever like really noticed it is when I was telling my parents more than anything. It's like I was the kind of person that I couldn't talk to other people. That wasn't people that I didn't know. That's how it started for me. I kept thinking like if I went to order at a restaurant and somebody got the wrong order, I wouldn't have the guts to say, "Hey, you got the wrong order. Can you remake it for me?" Little things like that I wouldn't be able to do. And like asking people for help if I didn't know them, I wouldn't be able to do anything like that. Even like at my job here, when I first started, I was like, I would go in, do my job, and just leave. I wouldn't talk to anybody because I was that closed off. And I was like afraid of people in that sense that I didn't know. So it took me a while to open up. And even I had some of my coworkers now who are the truck drivers who just say, I remember the moments that I would say good morning, you didn't even reply to me. And now when I say good morning, you don't stop talking. And because that's how I started growing with people. And I had little instances of like I would see myself reading. It will be one of my like coping mechanisms for that, or even listening to a podcast, or even music. And even wrestling has been one of those outlets for me. And even ironically, even watching horror movies. It's just little things that sometimes when I know what they're like, because I know with wrestling I know what I'm getting. With a horror movie that I've seen before, I know what I'm getting. And like little things like that that made me feel comfortable and at ease, because I know how it's going to end. I know how it goes. And that's how I started realizing it. But a few years ago, I had a job, basically, if you want to call it a call center, working from an airline, working from home. And I thought it would be comfortable because I'm thinking, oh, I'm not seeing the person face to face, which is what I'm afraid of most of the time anyway. But it made it even worse for me with my anxiety, because having people yell at you over the phone, telling you, you did this wrong, even though it wasn't you, it wasn't really helpful for me. And I would have times that I would, have nightmares that I will wake up and miss work and I will get in trouble. I had moments of like another thing that made it more difficult for me was also like I was working from home in my own room, so I couldn't divide it from like my own home time, because I was still in like my workplace, if you think about it from that aspect. And how many people like yell at you and shout at you and curse at you for things that went wrong, for certain ways that it wasn't your fault, that really affected me. Like it would affect my asthma. So that's why I noticed my asthma has got really worse during that time. I would get allergies, and like I would literally get sick physically because of how my anxiety was going. And that's when I noticed like I would like lash out on my family, and I would do little things that I was eating when I was really anxious all the time, and like constantly eating like little snacks here and there instead of having like a proper meal. And even counting the hours when I would go to sleep, I'm like counting the hours, thinking, okay, I got 6 hours like of free time before I go to work, and little things like that that I noticed I was doing just because I was dreading going to work. And then my changing now to the job I have now has made such a huge difference for me, because I don't talk to customers. I don't have to deal with customers. I only help my own coworkers, and it's nice to like be able to talk to them and have that face to face interaction that I missed. But at the same time, as I've gotten to know them, it has been easier to work with them. So it has helped that I don't have to have anybody yelling at me because I did something wrong or what or anything like that. And also it also has been helping me that with my bosses, they're the kind of bosses that they're not in like my shoulder asking me what I'm doing. They know that I'm working, and if they need anything, they'll let me know, hey, I need you to do this, and I'll add it to my list, and then know I'll get it done. But having that I don't have anybody like pressure me, like you had to finish this by a certain time or do this by a certain time, little things like that have helped me a lot. And it just I lost a lot of sleep too. I noticed that I will always be restless, and that wasn't even helping me through my day either. So now that's what I feel like it's a lot better now that I've been organized with my time, and I'm thinking I work from this time to this time. Nobody tells me really what to do, so that helps. And I can listen to music, I can listen to my podcast, and I can just kind of relax in that way and kind of shut off my mind of certain things. But it started more than anything like being afraid of talking to people, to another point that my parents look at me, my coworkers, like, who is this? Because she's talking to people so freely now when they come in, and people like when I talk to them now. So it feels like completely different how just the environment that I was in and the atmosphere completely changed how I was. And Even now I still get anxiety with like certain things. It's like even being on screen, it took me a while for me to be comfortable on screen. So I like seeing this and seeing the progress I have made being on screen and talking to other people. It's something that I every time I see myself, I get proud of myself because I would have never done this years ago. And just little things that like I know I have improved on. So it just makes me think of like I know I'm not at 100%, but I know I've made some improvements through the time, and it just because of the changes I've made in my life.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. And some of the things you said, I can understand too, like the coping with things that are familiar. And I didn't necessarily know I did this intentionally, but I would find myself, I'll put on a series I've seen thousands of times, or
Yeah.
wrestling matches I've watched before, or music that I'm familiar with, because this, the familiarity and something that helps with that coping is a big deal. And I also learned that this is something people did use as a coping mechanism for mental health.
Mhm.
Mel, let's go over to you for a little bit. Let's hear a little bit about your story.
Just to add on to the coping, like I gotta say, I've watched like The Emperor's New Groove from Disney like hundreds of times just because it's my
Mhm.
go-to happy, familiar movie that just makes me feel good, right?
Mhm.
It's a very relatable thing.
It's a good movie.
Um, something so with myself, like my anxiety, my mental stuff, I kind of noticed more as an adolescent, and I kind of noticed it actually in a very similar way that Astrid actually did. It kind of came up as like a I would get very uncomfortable and scared is the best word. Scared to talk to
Yeah.
people because I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing. It's going to lead to a situation that's going to make me uncomfortable. With myself, I tend to actually have very physical reactions when I start to have mental issues or get to be very uncomfortable or anxious. The kind of for myself, I do kind of sweat a little bit more. So you'll see me kind of going like this, trying to prevent myself from like sweating, but it makes everything worse. You'll see me clenching my hands, but I'll still be sitting here smiling, going, "Yeah, we're good, we're okay." Um,
Mhm.
Masking is something that becomes very, very easy for people who have anxiety and mental illness to kind of put on when they're going out in public, especially because it's just so easy to not admit that there's a problem than admitting that there's a problem. Um, I don't honestly know where my fear came from, though, if I'm being honest. It's just kind of because as a child, I was very much how Hastert is now, very social, very chatty. I could easily interact with adults and not have a problem. But it was like as soon as I hit my adolescency, it's like that fear kind of came in, and it's still lasted. I'm almost 40 now, and I'm still struggling going to the gym because I'll start to get anxious because I'm like, oh, now I have to see people. I'm going to see people there, and I'm going to see people. They're going to talk to me, and that's the worst thing is they're going to talk to me and interrupt my stuff. And but it's not even that I'm annoyed about the interruption. I'm annoyed. I'm scared of the interaction, and that interaction leads to this crazy anxiety and an inability to kind of make those relationships kind of work. So again, as Astrid mentioned, getting that friendship, getting that relationship kind of thing, very, very hard for me as a result of the mental kind of illness. And it also, as Astrid mentioned, it has an effect on my sleep also. And Bobby, you and I have also talked about privately about how our sleep is affected by this. My anxiety seems to kick up the absolute most in the evening time, right when I'm going to sleep. It's like my brain goes into overdrive, and I'm like, oh my God, this is every conversation I had today. And in this moment, I might have upset this person. Oh my goodness, what can I say or do to correct that, tomorrow or in the future if I am in this same situation? I will be up until 5, 6 in the morning when I have to get up at 8, like just struggling with this. And Bobby, we've also talked privately, for myself, this actually ends to night terrors when I do finally get to sleep because that anxiety kind of comes up in that subconscious kind of thing there. Um, Again, with the anxiety and the like myself with mental illness and depression, I don't know where it started, but I know there's situations that have certainly not helped it. Going forward recently, I've actually struggled with a breakup, some losses. It's been a heck of a year, but let me tell you, therapy is a great thing and not something that anybody should ever be ashamed of having to go and look for, whether it's in one of the numbers that Bobby's amazing video showed us there, whether it's a friend, one of us. Like, we've been through the ringer, you guys. Chances are, if you message us, if we don't know how to help with the situation, chances are that we know somebody who has gone through something similar, and we can at the very least talk to them and find out how they kind of helped each other out. But for myself, with the coping, as Astrid mentioned, wrestling very, very similar or familiar to me, so it makes me happy. uh, Bobby, you got your kitty there. Kitty is probably a very good coping mechanism. I know my dog is. But actually, wrestling was actually a source of stress for me recently, just because of the breakup and the kind of things attached in there. It's only been recently that I've actually been able to watch wrestling and enjoy it again. So that's exciting, because that means Andre and Melball's wrestling talks are going to get fun again.
Perfect. Looking forward to that. I know I've got a lot that I'm going to tell, so I just want to say, Astrid, if there's more that you wanted to add, I'm going to give you the floor first before I start running my mouth a long time here.
Yeah, I also thought about another thing that's happened to me before is that I tend to overthink. Like, if a male by me, think about that too, because I would had situations that I would say, for example, I'm like, I have to talk to Bobby about this, and I'm like, how do I bring it up? How do I say it? I'm like, if I say it this way, maybe he won't like it, and I will end up like not turning off my brain sometimes when I'm supposed to go to sleep, thinking of like, what wording should I use so I come off like I'm not complaining, like I'm not sounding like negative in a sort of way. And like little things like that that I tend to like overthink, like, and I have moments of like, if you're the kind of person that tells me I need to talk to you or I'll talk to you tomorrow, don't tell me that. I will not fall asleep, because even if I've done nothing wrong, I will try to find something I did wrong. Like my brain will be like, shoot, maybe I yelled at Mel and I shouldn't have. No, I didn't. And I was like, maybe I said something wrong to Mel and I should have apologized. Like, no, but I didn't say anything wrong to her. Like little things like that, I will find something it's happening here. And I had little moments like that with like people that I'm like, I'm afraid to talk to people. I'm like, I don't know how they're gonna go, because I feel like they give me attitude before, but here we go and see how it happens. And like little things like that that I feel like I sometimes will kind of play the conversations in my head, thinking if I say it this way, it will go this way. And then it goes in a better way than I thought it would. I was like, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I can breathe now. I'm good. But I noticed that it's definitely a lot of overthinking, and thinking if I do it this way, what's gonna happen? And I kind of started thinking like kind of that domino effect of like, if I do it this way, what's gonna be the end result? And I noticed that I find myself sometimes like kind of like not daydreaming, but like kind of like zoned out in that aspect of like thinking of the little things like that through the day. And I'm like, wake up, don't think about that right now, that's not your thing right now. um but it's just like going back to like those things of like, I if I'm working or if I'm like driving, I would literally just put a song just because I want to get out of the mindset and think of something else for that moment. And I'm like, let me think of this when the moment comes. And that's another thing, I tend to think so much about what's going to happen next that I don't enjoy that moment that's happening right now. And it's something that I really, really hate, because I'm thinking, let me enjoy what's happening in the present right now, rather than thinking about what's going to happen in the future, and then I don't get to enjoy that present and then I regret it later. And it's just like, for example, it sounds silly, but I went to a Taylor Swift concert not too long ago in Tampa. And here I am thinking, let me make sure that I got my tickets. Nothing that's happening with the tickets. Everything's good in the on my phone. Do I have a charger? Did my sister bring this? Can I bring a charger inside? Can I bring a bag? What kind of bag can I bring? And like, I think of everything. I was like, I hope this doesn't go wrong. And I couldn't find my seats, and I was freaking out. And I was with my younger sisters and thinking, okay, let me relax. We'll find our seats. Nobody took our seats. And if they did, somebody will find us new seats. Don't worry about it. You're fine. And just like little things of like, and I would not relax until I sat down in my seat and the show started. That's when I was like, okay, everything went well. And I kept thinking, okay, we're going to go ahead and try to go like an hour or so before showtime starts so I can get my merch. And my sister's like, we'll be fine. You're gonna have time. And I'm like, what if we don't though? I don't want to miss this because I'm in the line. And like so many things, she's like, you're fine, relax. And then when we got out, she goes, see, look at what time is it? We still got like 30 minutes or so for you to get your food and go to the seat. And I'm like, going to the food. The line is super long. I was like, shoot, I'm gonna miss the show. And she's like, calm down. You still got time. And that's another thing. I started thinking of time as like a shorter time. If somebody tells me, oh, we have a show at 8 o'clock, here I am thinking, that gives me 3 hours to shower and eat. That's not enough time. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
And it's like, I go to like moments like that and I'm like, relax. I'm like, you eating takes you what, 15 minutes? A shower takes you, exaggerating, 10 minutes. Like, you still got an hour and a half to enjoy to yourself if you think about it. So it's like, relax, you got time. So what people tell me is like, oh, we have, like, if I think of like, oh, I gotta be ready by like 10:15 for taking over, then I'm already thinking in my mind, okay, so I had to do 2 hours to do this thing. It's like, you got this, you got time. And I keep thinking I'm gonna run out of time when I actually have time, which is one of the things that really bugs me too. But it's like those little things that I'm like telling myself, relax, there's time, think about what's happening now, eat now, and then think about what's happening later when it happens later. And I tend to like overthink a lot, which is something that I feel like it hurts my brain at this point. But yeah, that's some of the little things that I forgot to mention earlier too.
No, and I get that as well too, because I can relate to the time thing very much. So I am a time freak, and I am a person who, if I'm not 10 to 15 minutes early to somewhere, I'm late in my brain already.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I start to get mad. And I know you've both seen me get frustrated very clearly. I can go from 0 to 100. It didn't always exist that way. And it's become a problem over time that I recognize and I try to deal with, but it's tough sometimes. And sometimes, like you say, when you play something out in your brain, or one person says something, another one says something, and all of a sudden that trigger happens and you can't control it. And it's like, I'm a different person. And I'm like, that's not me. That's not the rational me that can talk this through and figure this out. That is this new developed over time me that frustrates me even more knowing that it's happened. But before I start rambling even more, Mel, is there anything more you want to add before I'll start talking a little bit about my past?
The only thing I would want to say is that I completely relate to what you said. I mean, we've discussed this part privately also. I can be very, very reactive also, and it is something that I very much dislike about myself, and something that I've been working on since my 20s, which when I'm saying I'm approaching my 40s is probably not showing some good track record on my ability to pull in that reactivity. But hey, I've stopped throwing things, and that's a good thing.
That's a start.
It is. It's a good start. But Bobby, let's hear your story, man.
Okay, I'm going to do my best to get through as much of this as I can, but
We're here for you, sir.
I was a weird child to begin with, and I didn't know I was necessarily a weird child because I didn't think of it in this vein. Like I liked the things I liked. I didn't always like the things that everybody else in my area, especially in Saskatchewan, when you live in a small town and stuff like that. Like you're immediately outcast when you like this and this and this kind of thing. So I was a wrestling fan, so I was weird. I was, the kid that kind of like wanted to put himself out there and be an entertainer because I liked the idea of being an entertainer, and I got picked on for it right away in school. Before I even realized that I had a weight problem, other people let me know I had a weight problem. I was being called fat in school before I was actually fat. And that was a problem. Like it confused me to a point where it just broke me. I was this happy-go-lucky kid that laughed at everything and wanted to make people smile. And then it started to make me a little cynical. As it got a little bit older, I started to become more cynical. I'm like, why are these people like this towards me? What did I do to them to make them want to dislike me? And some of them were people that were friends, and that became hard too, that even my friends didn't necessarily have my back. And nowadays, like, you can reach out to people so much easier. I can sit here with the both of you and feel in a comfortable space, but you just didn't have that then. And my dad was no help. I'm going to say that right here. And while I'll defend something about him in a little bit, I won't defend some of the way he treated me as a kid. And Mel, I know I told you the story on the last show we did about like when I was asking to have a snack when we were over at, family friend's place in front of everybody. And he goes, well, look down at the floor. Can you see your feet? And when I said no, he's like, well, then you don't need a snack then, do you, fatty? Right in front of everybody there. And I mean, as a kid, you're like, why? Like, what did I do to destroy him on top of it? Like, this doesn't seem right. So my dad was a cop. He was a police officer, started his work over in England. They moved to Canada, in Calgary originally. That's where I was born. And for the first 6 months after I was born, Dad didn't have his green card. Mom was already dual citizen because she was born in Canada, moved to England, moved back. So I had to live in like my first 6 months. And of course, I don't have a memory of this. It was too young, obviously. But first 6 months were spent in Calgary with my mom while Dad was back in England before he could get green card approval status to come back to Canada. When he finally came back, he looked for the work. They no longer had the work in Calgary. We moved to Saskatoon. Saskatoon, we were there for a short little bit. I know I had a little friend that I hung out with in the apartment block that we lived at there until the one day that he got hit by a car playing in the street. And he was dead on arrival. Like, he did not make it. Shortly after, my dad was starting to feel the connection between his police work and us living in the same areas where he was working was going to cause a big conflict with time and stuff, especially as we got older. So he moved us to a nearby town so that we were at least out of his district for the police work. So that was fine. But then as a kid, I'd be sitting there, say, on a Friday or a Saturday night. And again, if anyone who out there who has a parent who does shift work, you know that 2 days on, 2 days off. As a kid, you're told Saturday morning to shut up because Dad just went to bed at 7 a.m. after working all night, and you can't be quiet, and you're constantly being yelled at and told off if you raise a voice, and fear that he might come down and throw a slipper at you or strap you with the belt or something. And again, I'm sorry, but these were still things in the 90s when I was a kid. I got the belt, the slipper, the hand, whatever was available to them happened to me at some point in time. Yeah, it was tough because you had to be that cop kid. You were quiet on Saturdays. You had to do things. I had my wrestling action figures, and I used to put a towel down on the ring so that they didn't make an impact when they hit the ring, so I could actually still play as a kid in the morning. That's how quiet I had to be. So that was always rough. There was the times too, I'd be playing video games on like a Friday or a Saturday night, and I remember the one time Dad comes walking through the door, and it's like blood, head to toe, all over him and everything. I'm like, well, is that yours? Like, no. And then he'd explain to me in detail, no, I was at a scene and somebody had blown their brains out the back of their head, and I was having to try to like hold them together and stuff like that while the medics got there. Oh, that's great. I'm sure that most 8-year-olds need to hear a story about people blowing the brains out the back of their head. And then he would start to tell me all the stories about different areas of Saskatoon, the crimes that would happen, the murders that would happen, things that he had seen, the bodies he had seen, some of the dead bodies he had seen back in England, people he had to cut down that had hung themselves from the docks and stuff like that too, and everything. Like, they're stories that you really don't necessarily need to be hearing as a young child. So I became very desensitized to violence at a very young age. I think it's why when I started watching horror movies, they didn't bother me. So by like age 8, I was already tuning into Freddy Krueger movies and Chucky movies and all sorts of stuff because they didn't disturb me like they did most. And I found humor and stuff in them to have fun more than anything. I could disconnect from it. As I got to my teen years, I definitely knew I was different than most people and I didn't fit in with the regular crowd. It's when I started to kind of get into like, I was always kind of like into rock and stuff like that, but I kind of got more into the heavy metal and the goth music and stuff like that. I definitely changed my style. I was starting to wear all black. I had a shaved head with just like bangs in the front, but I had them spiked up and they were blue at like, one point in time. DJ? Like, yes. Yes. But yeah, I had quite the interesting hairstyle for quite some time in there. And it would be around the time of the Columbine shootings that then people made the associations to the type of music you listen to, the movies you watch, anything like that meant that you were going to be somebody to do that thing next. So it became a lot of people within school saying that I was going to start the trench coat mafia here in Saskatchewan, that they were afraid that I was going to come to school and start shooting them up. And I'm like, if I wanted this, if this was ever a thought that crossed my mind, this could have happened at any time. I'm a cop's kid. There is guns all over our house. Like, I have no interest in picking up a gun. Like, guns didn't even interest me in any way, shape, or form. The idea of guns or knives or violence on other human beings outside of combat sports really disturbed me. I didn't like it. I didn't want to be a part of it at all. And it just sucked that that's what people assumed. So the only friends I was starting to make were the ones that were on that level with me. Like, they dealt with the same things. They struggled with the same things. And it would have been around that same time that I was suffering with that all of a sudden my dad, being a cop, was actually accused by another gentleman of having dropped him on the outskirts of the city here in Saskatchewan. This is the first time I am ever sharing this publicly out of fear. In fact, I feared using my last name when I got into doing wrestling stuff for this exact reason, because not a lot of people have made the association, and I don't care at this point. I'm ready to share it at this point, and if people don't want to like me because of what happened, then that's on them. My dad was accused by a Native American man, of dropping him on the outskirts of the city with the accusation that he told him to freeze to death out there. I could go into all the details of everything, how it was proven, even with actual testimony from other people, including other people in the Native community, that not only did he not do it with racial intent, that, there was just a lot of just political BS that was going at him to try to pin him as this. Like, it got to court, and it didn't even matter that it was brought up that a week before the incident that they were claiming against him, he had actually cut a Native woman down from hanging herself and gave her CPR and brought her completely back to life and everything. And when that was brought up in a court of law, they basically turned around and said that doesn't apply in this case. And my dad's lawyer had said, he goes, how does that not apply? You're trying to build a case to say that my client here is a racist man. And in doing so, they basically were prejudging and stuff like that. So it became a prejudgment on the whole family as a whole. Mm-hmm. So while I'm going to say, like, I'll defend the fact that he's not a racist man. He's a jerk of a father, and I don't speak to him. That's a different level altogether. He's definitely not a racist man, because he loved anybody and everybody. He was a talker. He was always out there chit-chatting. Quite a vocal man, and always liked to be around people. He loved going and studying other cultures. Like, at one point, he wanted us to move to Papua New Guinea at one point, because he really loved their culture and wanted to go and make a fresh start there and stuff. So, I mean, I'll defend him there. But yeah, it was weird growing up. We actually had a van that would park across the street from our house. Basically the white van you see in the movies that you find funny because it's Flowers by Irene one week and then Frank's Best Industry Pizza or something. That, like, I'm not kidding you, we had the Canada's version of FBI sitting across the street watching our every move. We had a special red buzzer in our house to basically push in case someone was trying to murder us, so that we could call the police immediately and they would come to save the day. We constantly were being bugged, reporters wanting interviews. Our phones were tapped. Like, so if anybody watching has ever had your phone tapped, it literally, as soon as you pick up, you hear a click on the other line because somebody else is clicking into your phone call. And so you knew you were being listened to. So you couldn't have long conversations. We basically, if we wanted to make a phone call, it had to be a call to someone. Hey, can you hang out? Yes, meet me here. Gone, done. And that was the end of the phone call right away. Because while we didn't really have anything to hide, we didn't really want to be sharing stuff that could be leaked with media and stuff, because media are terrible, awful scum of the earth that twist things around all the time. They will take things out of context. They lie through their teeth. One particular reporter came to our house, and I was the one that was just getting home from school. My brother and sister weren't there. Mom was working. Dad was out. And this guy's banging on the door. So I come around front and I said, can I help you? And he goes, yeah, I've got an interview with your dad. I'm like, interesting. I said, I didn't know about this. He goes, yeah, I booked it just recently with him. I was like, I think you're lying to me. And he goes, no, I'm not. I've got an interview. I said, well, I'm going to be polite about this to start. And if you don't listen to what I say, this is not going to be pretty for you. I said, we're not talking to the media. I said, this is the most words you're going to get. I said, I'm going to ask you politely to leave the property right now. I said, or that dog you hear barking, who's quite a big boy, is going to come out and he's going to give you a piece of his mind next. I was like, so you've had your warning. Now leave. So this little nerd scurries off, gets in his car, drives away. Week later, an article comes out that says that not only did he have an interview, but he made claims that my dad was a Scottish immigrant, not an English one like he actually is. He claims he used to sing in a church choir. My dad has got about a vocal voice range that I do, which means he can't sing or shit. And not only that, he's been to church in many times in his life as I probably ever have, which is next to none. So these were already, they weren't vicious lies, but it's an example of the lies that he told. Now, I think it was, I can't remember the older gentleman on CBC News at that time, went on TV to actually claim that my dad stole his sports coat from him. He literally called my dad by name on television, saying that basically, with a name like Bobby Munson, what do you expect? He just stole my sports coat the one time I bumped into him. We never met the guy. So I became very cynical towards media and how they were acting and stuff like that. So it was a tough time. My dad ended up going to prison for 7 months. There was an attempt on his life while he was there. 3 guys were waiting in the yard with knives. They knew that there was the visitation rights that he had with my mom, and that they had to walk prisoners from the actual cell area to the visitation area. These guys had hidden in the yard. The plan was not only to stab my dad to death, but to also stab the guard that was leading him there to death, because why not? He just happened to be a guy that was walking him there that day. So lucky enough, another prisoner ratted. This was caught before it ever ended up happening. Otherwise, that would have been his life and the life of a very innocent guard at the jail cell at the time, which 100%, think what you want about what my dad did. Again, you might not, anyone who reads into it might not agree. They might think that he's bad. I'm okay with that. I wouldn't have been okay with another innocent man losing his life in that process, because that's not right. Under any circumstance, that's not right. So I'm glad that didn't end up happening, especially for the life of that guard. Spent 7 months there. Ever since he got out, never was the same. Not at all. Everything changed about him mentally, but he didn't want to necessarily know that it had changed him, and he would reflect that against me a lot of the time. And I was not doing very well with it myself. I was starting to become very introverted compared to the way I was extroverted. I was starting to become a little bit more rebellious. I got to a point where party life was the way I coped. I started drinking heavily, and to the point of complete stupidity, until I started realizing that wasn't enough. So I started getting into hard drugs, bad into hard drugs, to the point where I'm probably lucky I'm even alive today with how many hard drugs I was doing at the time. And kicking that habit was never easy. And it's still to this day is not easy. When you sit there and you hear about people doing certain hard drugs and stuff like that, oh, I remember that being fun. No, it's not. Don't you remember twitching and rolling around on a floor, sweating at 6 a.m, wondering if you could call somebody to get more? It's not a good addiction. It's horrible. And I'm talking, this is a cocaine addiction, also MDMA, ecstasy. You name it, I was probably doing it. I didn't get into needles. I'll admit that. I didn't get down that path. I'm glad I didn't. But yeah, even meth, it got to that point a little bit. It made a change in me. It made me very, very angry and very, very against everybody. It turned into me basically pushing people away. A lot of friends that no longer talk to me as a result. My family disowned me as a result. I haven't spoken to my mother or my father in probably 12 years now. My sister hasn't spoken to me in many years, which means I have also missed my Well, I mean, my one niece is now 16, 17 years old. I haven't seen her since I didn't even see her 10th birthday. My other niece, Alex, she was barely old enough to walk when I saw her. And my nephew, Levi, had just been born. And I have never even met my nephew, Eric, except for seeing him walking around at my brother's wedding and not having a clue who I was. And then I know one time we were running a soccer camp, my brother and I realized that my niece Alex was in the camp. And I just inside, I didn't show it, but I was like, she doesn't know me. She really doesn't know me anymore. And I struggle so hard with that. And it's tough. Like, that's why when I had said that my brother finally had his little baby girl, my niece, I was so ecstatic because I love knowing that I can spoil little kids and be there for them and be everything that I wish people were around me when I was younger and stuff like that. So it was great. Hope maybe one day I'll be able to talk to my nieces and nephews again. I don't know, but it does beat me up inside. And I know I've never shared this much information about me personally. And I really hope it doesn't sour anybody on who I am as a person or anything like that. But it has affected me. And it is one of the reasons that I play out scenarios in my head all the time. And I'm constantly battling against my own brain, thinking, what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? Why have I upset this person? Am I going to push somebody else away? And so sometimes when you see me getting revved up and everything like that, it's because in my head, I think I've gotten to that point where I've hurt people so bad that I'm going to push them away too. And I start to get defensive of my own personal feelings. And then I start to hide it, or I get very angry. And like you said yourself, Mel, like it gets to a point of physical anger. My physical anger, I know enough to take it out on the things that can take it, like my heavy bag at home or a cardboard box that just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But poor cardboard box is just going to have to deal with it. That's how I've dealt with it at times. I know it's not always the best. I've always pushed away therapy and I've always pushed away therapists for whatever reason. When I sit down with them, don't give them anything. And not one of them has been able to make a breakthrough with me yet. This is the closest I've been to talking or breaking through on any of this outside of talking to my own wife, honestly. And I think it's just because I felt that this has been a comfortable space and it's time that I start sharing a little bit of who I am behind the scenes. And either one of you, please take over from there. I need a minute. So
no, thank you for sharing that, because I know for us, sounds like I got to know a little bit of that side of you, but not everything like you shared just now. And I know it takes a lot of guts to be able to like say that, especially when you know that this is going to be online sometime later as well. So it's like I want to thank you for not only saying it, but giving us the opportunity to be a part of this with you here as well.
Yeah. Oh no, I really do appreciate that. And again, I know I did a show similar to this. This would have been about a year and a half, 2 years ago or something. And I gave tidbits of what I've just told, but I didn't give the full blown. And I think that some of that just had to do with not feeling in that environment like I felt like I could share, as where here, especially with not only with the two of you, but with everybody in OLE in general, or the people that have kind of started to, be on screen with us in OLE and everything like that. I feel like they've been a lot more accepting of people's feelings, a lot more accepting of who we are as human beings and stuff like that. And it's been easier to cope with that way. And yeah, I'm glad I'm able to talk about it. I'm not going to lie, I am shaking. I know going on stream makes me nervous at times. I know I don't always show it, but I definitely have those times where I struggle just a little bit, kind of thing. And even going into wrestling shows, PPW shows, I check bags, I check for my cameras to make sure they're all good to go and everything, because I'm so nervous all the time. I come in like a ball of energy on these streams sometimes, but I'm telling you, I am like this behind the scenes. I promise you that.
I mean, very relatable on Andre and Melball's Wrestling Talk. That was the kind of the first time that I've ever kind of done anything on camera on a consistent and long time basis. I still get nervous every time that I go on to the streams, but just like you, I try to hide it a lot. But a lot of like the breakups and the grief that I've been going through recently, have been happening while I'm still doing streams. And I've done my absolute best to go on there. And as you said, just be that ball of energy everyone knows me to be, to not express what I'm going through at that moment. So yeah, very, very relatable. I think Astrid, you also probably have still some nerves every time you go on here. Like when we go on to Ladies Wrestling Showcase, we're in the backstage area going, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. Okay, are we making sure this is this is all we're talking about? This is the order. Okay, we have to, this is what we're going to say. This is the structure of it. What if someone comes in the comments? Okay, we got to deal with it. Like it's so much anxiety, and then we go live and we're like, hey everyone, Melball and Astrid here. It's as I mentioned earlier, it's a masking thing. We're very good at hiding our anxiety and our fears and our issues to project something completely different so that people will treat us the way that we want to be kind of treated. Yeah.
No, yeah, and you're definitely right. I feel like it happens very often that I'm like that's why I'm thankful for the people that I work with, because I know that I'm not a burden to. That's another thing. I always feel like I'm a burden to people and I'm bothering people. That's another thing. Is like every time I text somebody, I was like, I'm sorry to bother you. And I say whatever I have to say. And then people are like, no, you're not bothering me. But I think in my mind that I am. But I'm thankful for like people like you guys that I know like you guys have, I don't want to say learn, but you kind of know how I work now. So we work with each other in that aspect, and we don't get judged either because we learn from each other how the other works, and we learn each other's vibes if you think about it from that aspect. And yeah, I do that all the time, to the fact that like I have people like Mel and I, we, for obviously those that don't know, Mel and I met just like randomly doing a show because I wanted to do a post show on a pay-per-view. I invited LJ, who I didn't know at that time, and I invited Mel, who I didn't know at that time. I just had Cody say, I have a friend that I think she would like to join. I say, great, let's do it. And I was a nervous mess because I'm thinking I invited somebody else, I couldn't make it, and the only person that I really knew was Ed. And then he's like, I'll handle the buttons for you because I know you're nervous. And I love that about Ed too, because people see him like this way, but he knows how I am, and he's like, okay, I'll deal with this because I know you're nervous. I'll do this because I know this is how you are right now. So you like ease up, and then I know you're good. Um, so he's been one of the people that's been really helpful for me, like growing on screen and being who I am. I'm not saying I'm like fake or anything like that, but it just like you kind of learn your way of like working around with people. And he's like, I'll handle the buttons. And I was so nervous that I would mess up somehow with anything that I was doing. And then I think like that show to me was such a blessing in disguise, because I ended up growing such a great friendship with not only Mel but Ella at the same time, and to the point of like Mel and I talk every day. We do voice messages, we do video chatting messages every single day until the other one falls asleep, and then we go back and forth every single day about so many things. And I love that I can have that kind of friendship that we talk about anything and everything. I never had a friend like that before. I know one of my close friends that I met in the other job that I had, she's like in that aspect with me too, of like, I feel like now as a grown up, as an adult, I finally have those kind of friendships that I can tell my friends anything and I don't get judged. And they're like respond back of like, no, but it should be this way, like little things like that. And I love having that because I love their honesty, and I don't take it like to heart because I know it's nothing bad. It's just me learning through them. Um, but I also wanted to hit back on a couple of things that you mentioned, Bobby, because I kept thinking of the hobbies like you mentioned. I got made fun of in high school, and even I think in Puerto Rico too, because for those of you that don't know, I was born in Puerto Rico. I moved to the U.S. In 2004. But when I was in Puerto Rico, a lot of people would make fun of me for not liking like the reggaeton kind of music. So, but anything like the type of music Bad Bunny makes, I don't like that music. I really don't. But it's something that's very cultural in Puerto Rico, so a lot of people listen to that very often. And I was one of those people that like, I would listen to like punk and alternative music, and it just like music in English was like, who the heck are you? Are you really Puerto Rican now? And then moving here, it just like people were like, do you like Spanish food and you sound like this and your accent? It's just like I was too like Hispanic for the people here. So I feel like I never find that middle ground for me. And I feel like I never belonged anywhere for that reason. And I got made fun of for like not liking like the reggaeton kind of music and liking that, that emo kind of thing. And I will have like my emo face was because I'm the person that I don't do tattoos or piercings. So my emo face was changing my hair color. And I went from having, my black hair to my red hair to blonde. And I would do so many things until I stuck with my red hair because I love it so much now. And I don't want to change it after. Um, But yeah, I got my fun up for like the music that I was listening to, for the music and the movies I was watching, even for like in wrestling, because it's just like, you're a girl, why are you watching wrestling? Like, why are you liking wrestling? And then when I tell people like, really, but that's a guy thing, or like it's fake, or like I get obviously the usual comments. And I'm grateful now that I'm in a time in the community that it's welcoming to have females in the community. And I know it's not 100%, but it's made a lot of progress though, and I'm grateful for that, because I know I wouldn't have been able to deal with it beforehand. um I had aspects of like my dad and my brother were like the wrestling fans, and I will barely say anything about it, to the point of like my mom's like, you took it a step further from your dad and your brother, because he went from going to the shows to like talking about the shows now. So we see it differently in that aspect too. And even now when I show my friends what I've done, they're like they can't believe what I've done online, because they never thought about me doing anything like this before. Um, and even another thing that I got made fun of is like me. I turned 32 in March, and I never had a sip of alcohol, and I never had drugs ever. And I have people like making fun of me for not even trying it. And it's like, I don't mind that people have done it or that do it currently, but I'm like, it had never caught my interest in any way, shape, or form. And I have people like, you work at a warehouse that sells liquor. You never had liquor in your life, any alcohol? And it's like, no, I have not. And it's like, but what do you do when they give you like those gift cards for? Where I was like, well, there's other stuff I can buy at the store. It's not just alcohol. They have Red Bull there too. So I people when they hear me say things like that, I get that reaction of like, you never tried it. No, and I don't want to either. Um, but those little things that people judge you for, that you're like, I shouldn't say anything, because you already feel the judgment ahead of time before you even mention it. And it's always happening with like even the horror stuff. Is like, it's kind of weird for me to like the show Dexter. Is like, if you watch SVU on those things, you guys, I can kind of kill somebody, get away with it, because apparently I watch these shows. It's just like those little things that people say that you're like, yeah, I shouldn't really mention this going forward, because of like, you already feel that judgment before it happens. And yeah, I had little things like the hobbies is a big thing for me. It's like I said, it's like I get little things, like I collect Funko Pops. For some people, that is freaking weird that I have so many, but I really don't care. I have a full like glass case full of them with all the fandoms that I like, but I'm like, I don't care. We all have that thing that we get into, and we just that's it. So I was like, that's my thing. I was like, I collect Funko Pops, and I collect like the movies that I like. Like I said, it's like, for example, for me, I watch Scream because I know what's happening. I could be reading and I could have Scream in the background because I know what's happening just by the sounds of it. That's how many times I've seen the movie. And even like repeating the lines, like my sister will look at me like, how do you know the lines? It's like, I've been watching this movie for way too long. Okay, if I could tell you the number of times that I watched it, you'll be surprised. I can't even keep count because it's been that many. But like little things like that, if even the songs, when every time, like now with the Taylor Swift concert, like trying to prepare them for the concert, they're like, do you listen to her since this year? And like, you listen to these songs for so long? Yeah, that's how I am. I've been listening to like these things for like so long now. And I have like so many hobbies that it's kind of weird to keep track of at the same time, because I like to go to conventions. I like to do cosplays. And like, I noticed that those hobbies are the things that make me feel like it is a great way to escape. Is a great coping mechanism. And it makes me think of like, if I think of this when I do this, then I won't think of like the things that my brain is going to put into me, because I have times that my brain will tell me, you're not good enough for this, just quit while you can. But I have like, my motivation is, look how well I'm doing already, and I can do more than this. And at times that like my body would tell me, is like, just give up, look at everything you're doing, just give up while you're ahead. And there's times that like I have those times that like I will talk to my mom and tell her, I don't know why I feel sad. And I literally would just stop crying. And she's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. It just happens. And I have moments like that it's just great to be able to talk to somebody and just say, just let me cry for whatever's happening. And I just vent whatever is happening at that moment until I couldn't get it out of my system. But I think one thing for sure is that my brain has definitely been one of those, like I say, like my brain's my enemy, because my brain is the one that's always telling me, look at this person, they're prettier than you, so that's what they get compliments and you don't. And it's like little things like that, of like the opposite of what it should. I'm like, I'm not saying I'm pretty or like the most beautiful thing in the world, but my brain is telling me the complete opposite, and it makes me have like a low self-esteem as well. And it's like, when I first started here, I kept thinking, I'm gonna get a bunch of hate comments, because first, I'm a female talking about wrestling, and first because of my voice and my accent. I did the first stream I did. Nobody ever said a word about my voice, and I said, "That's all I needed to know." As long as I don't get anybody complaining about it, I will be fine. And so I'm always scared about the comments when I do like live shows. So it's like doing a live show, it's nerve wracking for me. But once I'm here and once I hit the live button, it all goes away. And I'm glad that I have people like that help me out, or like we're here together and like we kind of ignore it. I would get comments and like I will have people like Cody and Ed that are in the streams with me, even in Melon's like, don't worry, just keep going, ignore it. We'll kind of look at each other like we're not even acknowledging it, and we go to the next comment, and that's how I always do. And I'm glad that in social media I never had any kind of backlash like that, because that's something I've always been afraid of. And like somebody coming in my mentions and just keep back and forth with me. That's the only thing that I'm glad that I never had. But it's just so many things like I notice, and I don't notice it until I start talking about them, like I am with you guys right now. That I'm like, it's so many things that I go through on a daily basis, and it's such a battle. Um, Even getting up in the morning at time, like I'm in a moment of like, I don't want to go to work. I just want to lay down in bed and just sleep all day. But then I wake up and I'm thinking, I'm gonna make the best out of it. And I will wake up and kind of motivate myself to keep going. And as I keep going, my day gets better. And I'm like, you see, you were afraid of nothing for no reason. So it happens. So it's nice to have like this kind of opportunity to talk about it, because I don't get to talk about my mental health and my anxiety and everything that I go through before I do shows, or how my everyday life is. So it feels weird to talk about them out loud to other people now, and to other people to listen to it too. But no, it's nice to be able to like talk about it and discuss it though.
Yeah, and I mean I can relate it to, like, I mean, with prepping for shows, and not just these streams. Like, I've been performing in some capacity since I was quite young. Like, when I was in grade school, I know one time they were having a Western day at school, and I got up and sang a weird Western song in front of the entire school, got laughed at and all that jazz. But I wanted people to laugh. I wanted them to smile. I've always wanted to entertain. So I always did something in some capacity in that way. I got into rock bands. I started doing shows and stuff like that. And I'm always nervous. Like, if I'm performing in a stage play or performing a concert, or it doesn't matter if there's 10 people there or 500 people there, I am shaking before I go out there. And I want to know from the both of you, do you almost like, and not saying, I know Astrid, you mentioned it's not that you're fake on stream, but you almost find a different side of yourself and amplify that particular side of yourself in order to get through, almost like it's a character, but it's not, because it is a part of your personality, but it's a revved up part of the personality that you want to give to the people watching, because you want to be able to change their day. You want to be able to make them smile. And despite all the shit you might be going through personally, you might have made somebody smile and could have made the big difference in their day, kind of thing. And that's how I feel anyway. I want to know from both of you if that's similar for yourselves.
I figured Mel, since I talk too much.
I mean, the Melball persona that I definitely project is a lot more. It's a part of my personality, but it definitely is an amplified part of my personality. I definitely say fuck a lot more than I do on stream, like in real life. But yeah, it is a part of my personality, but it's certainly an amplified, more bubbly, kind of giddy kind of part of me. But you guys both know I am that giddy kind of person. I just say fuck a lot more in text. I don't find it hard though, and then I actually project it, as you mentioned, Bobby, as a means to kind of entertain and make people laugh or make people happy. I do tend to joke a lot. Sometimes my jokes are a little inappropriate, but I do try to make people laugh, because I know that our age demographic is a lot more mature, so they can handle that little more mature kind of joke there. But yeah, I do find that my part of my personality is definitely more a little more showy on screen for the sake of showmanship and entertainment value, for sure. But it is still a part of who I am. There's just a lot more swearing.
That's fair. And anything on that one, Astrid? I do have another question we'll go to after, but anything like that you can relate to on that one?
Yeah, I feel like I always get nervous even beforehand, just like pre-planning, when I have moments of like when Ed and I go over the show and it's like, oh, we're gonna do it this way today. I always get kind of nervous up until we get that light button, and once the theme song hits and like I said it before, Ladies Wrestling Showcase, but when we're like backstage, a lot of people don't see this, but I have people like Ed who just like rocking over to the theme song and just like little things like that. I know he does it to make me laugh and to like make me break out of my shell. And I know he does it on purpose. And I love that about him because I know he does it so effortlessly at the same time because he knows he's making me comfortable. But yeah, just like I feel like there's times of like I'm the kind of person that my dad tells me is like, you don't realize that you smile very often. My mom's like, you're a very happy person. And I noticed that even though I'm like, my mind tells me otherwise, on the outside, I'm always like smiling and happy. And people always see me kind of like the bubbly kind of thing. And I didn't realize it at first, but my mom told me about it. And after that, I never stopped thinking about it. It's like, I never heard anybody laugh and smile so much before. I never have. You're the one person. And I noticed that I do that when I'm doing the shows. Like, I'm always smiling. And I'm always kind of like, I don't want to say I have more energy because I feel like in that part that's not me, but I feel like I end up like being like a bigger kind of personality when I'm on screen versus when I'm like off screen. I'm more like a little bit more relaxed, if you want to call it like that. But like I said, it's not like I'm lying or anything like that. It just feels like I feel more free when I'm like online doing this. I feel like I can do it versus when I'm alone. I'm like, I don't have to do it right now because it feels awkward to be like that when I'm like by myself or with my family versus when I'm on screen and be like a certain way and people will catch on because as people notice how I am. But it's just like things like that. And that's why whenever people like ask me how I am and how I started doing this, I always say I had loved people like Parrish and people like Ed and like Bobby and Mel and even Cody who have brought on like different parts of me that I never brought on screen before. And that's why I love like working with you guys more than anything. And it feels weird when I work with other people that I feel like they don't really take out the same out of me as you guys do. But it's always nice to talk with people that made me feel like I shouldn't be afraid to say what I'm gonna say. That's one thing I was always afraid of with wrestling media. Just like, should I say that I didn't like this just because it's not a popular thing? And I realized it's better for me to say how I feel and just be consistent about it than be fake and just be like half and half. I'd rather just say how I feel, and then if people don't like it, oh well, because it's my opinion. I'm not wrong, just like your opinion is not wrong either. So
yeah, no, everybody's entitled to those opinions for sure.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do want to ask is, I know Mel, you had mentioned therapy, but I want to ask either one of you, is there any other coping mechanisms that you use for dealing with a really stressful mental health day, whether it be exercise, fresh air, meditation? Like I'll start by saying that at times, and I should do it more, meditation has been very helpful. I will give a shout out to Jason Stevenson, a wonderful Australian man who has some fantastic guided meditations on YouTube that people can check out, and they are wonderful to fall asleep to and very, very helpful. Yoga is another one. So if you're looking for doing yoga, you can do it at home. Sure, DDP yoga is available. It can be very, very impactful, but if you're looking for a calming yoga, actually I'll recommend Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube as another one. She does a wonderful job. Very calming voice as well too, so when you're having a very stressful day, she's somebody that's good to listen to. Not gonna lie, the cannabis helps me. I know it's not for everybody, but it's definitely something I've used as a way to help slow my brain down just enough. And my brain's always active. I'm not a stereotypical stoner that's just going to sit in the couch and fall down. I will smoke to calm my overthinking down, and then I get focused. And when I get focused, I get working. And when I get working, I get a lot of things accomplished in a very short period of time. And that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of how I cope. And that's what keeps me going a lot of the time. And the other thing that helps me 100% is my wife. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be who I am today. I probably wouldn't have got over my drug addiction if it wasn't for her. She is everything to me, 100%. And that's one thing I will always say is she is my best friend, always will be. And because of her, I am who I am, doing what I do with her full blessing and support all the way, all the time. So from the two of you, I'm just curious what coping mechanisms you use.
I mean, first of all, thank you, Mrs. Munson, for saving Bobby. Astrid, go ahead.
I feel like I already mentioned a couple of them, but like definitely like watching wrestling. Another one has been for me has been writing because I'm a writer as well.
Mhm.
I don't get to do it often anymore, but definitely writing has been a great outlet as well beforehand. Reading has been a huge one for me. I really don't talk about this on here because I was always wrestling more than anything. But you know, I do have my own platform when I talk about books, and I have my own like say like on like Instagram for just dedicated to that, my own TikTok, and I had and again a following from that to the point of I've been able to work with publishers to promote books and got paid to promote books and being able to do like little panels here on book conventions and met authors here and there. And I've gotten so many opportunities from that aspect of my life, and I'm grateful for it because it's been a good coping mechanism. Because I'm thinking, if my mind is busy, then I'll be fine. That's always been like my thought process. So I always tend to like, I'm gonna go read. Some I'm a mood reader too, which that part doesn't help because I feel like I don't finish one book and I'm trying to start another one and I'll go back and forth. But it's just that part of like my books is a huge thing for me. Wrestling has been a huge part of it, and even music. I love having. I have a playlist for like my moods. So I'm like, if I'm in a mood that I feel like I'm upset, and rather than being physical, I would listen to like emo music and just like that screamo sometimes or even punk music and just kind of take it out of my system in that way. Um,
Mhm.
but I ended up being the part of like I would rather sleep rather than continue on with my day just so I can turn off my brain in that aspect. But I realized like I'm just wasting time by doing that because I have the rest of my day that I'm not using. So that's why I started listening to music and listening to podcasts and finding like little lifestyle YouTubers that I like that I can just watch in the background while I'm reading. So I feel like there's something going on here. And even candles. I like lighting up candles when I'm reading, while I'm cleaning.
Mhm.
I intend to clean a lot too. I tell my family I have to clean every single week my room, and that's how like a thing that helps me out because I'm thinking like the thought process of what I'm gonna do next. I don't think about other things, so it's another huge thing that I tend to do in there as well. But I think the biggest one is definitely reading and wrestling for me. Being able to do the shows, it takes me that moment of like while I'm watching wrestling, I don't think about what's happening in my mind. If I'm talking about it, then I'm not thinking about that stuff either. So it's always nice to be able to do these shows and be able to collaborate with other people in the community because it's those moments of like it takes me away from my mind. And it's amazing because I talk about this so constantly when I keep thinking I'm not I feel like I'm not great at this. And she's like, look at everything you're doing, all the people that want to work with you because of the work that you're doing and how hard you're working. And sometimes I think about it, I was like, I'm not doing anything. She goes, are you kidding me? Like you do this show, this show, this show, and you do that. I was like, okay, you're right. So it's like I had those moments of like I don't realize that I'm doing a lot, but I actually am doing more than I should have at times, and I don't realize that. I don't know if she can attest to that for sure. But yeah, it's definitely those are my coping mechanisms.
That's awesome. How about yourself, Mel?
I mean, obviously the gym. The gym. I'm always at the gym. I'm always at the gym. And I always have found when I get in a mood, it's good to go to the gym.
Mhm.
I mentioned my reactivity before. I used to be very, very, very bad at being, instantaneously reactive. Since I've been going to the gym, I can't react there. You can't go to a gym and react when are surrounded by people who are monstrously larger than you in every way, shape, or form. And you can't really throw machines around very easily, I found out. So, um, the dumbbells, they go pretty good though, in case you were wondering. Just avoid the glass. But yeah, the gym has been something that really, really helps me because when I start to get into my episodes where I'm not doing so good, I get into hyperdrive mode. And my body just has to be doing something to distract me from what it is that I'm doing. So the gym, a really good place again, because I can go there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and just be angry and no one will talk to me because headphones. Another thing that for me though was creativity, just doing crafts. I'm a big MacGyver girl. I'm a DIYer. I can literally take some trash and go, I can turn this into something fancy. And I might not be able to, but gosh, the process of trying to get there is sure fun and entertaining to watch on most days. My room looks kind of like just a cluttered mess of just random things that I've made for the Nightmare Before Christmas, which is also another huge coping mechanism for me, which was almost actually ruined for me by my therapist in the comparison that she did to my life and the movie, which was terrifying. Apparently, I really am Sally, which is very concerning. That being said, though, Nightmare Before Christmas, another big movie that I love to watch, just the combination of the spooky stuff, but then the song and dance, it to me is the perfect movie to kind of put you in a good mood because the message behind it also is pretty good too. Don't steal someone's shit and don't nearly die while you're doing it. Um, Pretty good life lesson. But also, like Bobby, I also partake in cannabis. Again, to slow down that hyperactivity and that overdrive that my brain kind of goes into, particularly in the evening time. I have noticed also, like Bobby, I'm not the kind of smoker where I'm going to smoke and then I'm going to chill on the couch and eat 2 bags of chips and play video games for a few hours. I am that girl who's going to take that smoke and I'm going to madly clean my entire house. I'm going to take that smoke
Mhm.
and productively do something. That craft that I want to do, I'm going to finish it that night. My goodness, like any editing, graphics I need to create, they're getting done. Any shows I need to watch, they're probably going to get done a little bit in the background while I'm physically doing something else. But something that I'd also mentioned earlier, I used to get a lot of night terrors and that overthinking in the nighttime. The use of the cannabis has actually stopped my night terrors.
Yep.
I don't have any scary dreams anymore that keep me awake, and I can actually smoke and go to bed within 10 minutes of having that last kind of puff. So to go from having 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night to actually getting that 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night has had a huge positive, tremendous impact on my health and my mental health overall. Because you guys can attest to this. I am much less of a bitch when I get all the sleep that I need in one night. Let me tell you.
Yeah, me too. But and I can attest to the night terrors thing because this is something I've had since a little kid, and I remember the first time getting them. The time I remember getting them was quite early, but I've been suffering with them since I was not even 2. So I know Mom took me in for a lot of testing when I was really young because there was multiple times when Dad would be on shift work that I would just kind of be sitting up in my bed with my eyes wide open and I would have tears trickling down and she'd ask what's wrong and I'd be like, Mom, they're just here to take me away. The men are here to take me away finally. And it scared her. It freaked her out. And I kind of get where it comes from now too, because eventually, and I mean, anybody who has had night terrors or sleep paralysis will know of the shadow people. And now the shadow people are very common in night terrors. They can take many forms, whether they take the form of shadow figures that show up at some point in time. They could take the form of an actual person that you know, or they can take a form of somebody you don't know, but has kind of been put together with, memories of other people. It got to a point where my night terrors were so bad, I would sleepwalk. I wouldn't necessarily know what I was doing. And I don't know if this is the same for you, Mel, but I can become violent if somebody tries to wake me from a night terror. So somebody might think, oh my goodness, there's something really wrong with him. And they try to touch you and you don't know that it's them touching you. For all you know, it's whatever you're seeing in this night terror and you freak out. And I've had to warn people before, if you're going to be around me when I'm sleeping, if you see me moving around, talking, doing something weird, unless I'm about to fall off the ledge of something, which again, I'm only saying because that has legitimately happened to people with night terrors before, where they have fallen off a balcony and lost their lives. So unless that is the point I'm at, don't get involved because I don't want to do that to somebody. And the cannabis has helped because it slows the brain down. And what it actually does is it passes a person to the part that they call REM sleep or REM, rapid eye movement, where you bypass that portion that allows you to get into that dream sequence. So you basically skip that portion to the deep sleep so that you don't end up with those situations, which has been very beneficial. But if I don't have the right kind, or I don't do it at the right time before I choose to go to sleep, it can still creep in every once in a while. And it gets to the point where I see, like when I was younger, I would see, it started with an old lady. There was an old lady that would almost like witch-like, that would make it so I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe, and then she would stand over me laughing. And then it started to become people I knew. And so in my head, these were normal situations. I was at home with my family, and then they'd start laughing at me and I couldn't move and everything. And it got worse and worse and worse, to the point where one of them was, I was laying in my bed sleeping, and all of a sudden I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. And I looked at myself coming down the stairs, and I was carrying something that looked like something that was going to band me together or strap me down or something, and I couldn't move. And I just kept laughing at myself. Like I was looking at myself laughing at me. And when I woke up from this one, it was even worse, because I had a mirror in my room at the time. And so the first thing you do, you wake up in a panic, you see yourself in the reflection. I lost it, completely lost it at that point. These have continued into my adulthood. My wife has seen it on more than one occasion and stuff like that too, and even been a little freaked out by it, because there's times where, I even remember a distinct time that the house we're living in or whatever, I swear it felt like I wasn't sleeping. We were in our living room, and all of a sudden I could just hear this slow banging on the back door. And so I got up, and there was this really tall man just banging his hand slowly against the door, staring and laughing at me. And so, of course, I want to get into defense mode, and I start yelling, but then I feel I don't have a voice, and I'm starting to feel paralyzed, and I can't move all of a sudden. And I know when I woke up and my wife was telling me about it, she's like, you were yelling at the top of your lungs, swearing like a sailor. She's like, I didn't know what was going on, because you're just screaming at the back door. But there was nothing there. There was legitimately, like, we have security cameras. There was nothing there. This was all in my brain. But that's how bad it can trigger you, and how bad these things can get. And again, anybody with night terrors, there is ways to deal with that as well too. And it doesn't help your mental health when you go through that. So again, that's another reason I say, get the help that you can, and don't let it manifest and become worse, because that is the mistake I've made in life, is allowing things to manifest and get worse, to the point when at 40 years old, it's a lot harder to deal with than it would have been if I would have recognized these things earlier and maybe coped with them sooner, kind of thing. So I really can't stress enough how much I believe people need to reach out when they know that there's a problem.
I've actually had the incident where I have actually been in the middle of one of those night terrors, and the partner, not my last partner, but a few partners ago, did try to touch me. And my first instinct was turn around and elbow him in the face, and nearly broke his nose. I've had another time where I thought, I had one of those waking kind of moments where you didn't know if you were awake or what was happening around you was a reality. I abandoned my partner. I thought that I was going to get eaten by a spider, and I was like, nope, not me. You can have him. And I ran out of the room and left him there to get eaten by whatever giant spider was coming to get me. So it definitely will. It doesn't help, because he was pretty pissed that I left him for the spider. That really caused some issues.
Yeah, and it's tough when people don't go through it themselves for them to understand it necessarily too. Like my wife's fantastic. She's understood it. She's listened to what I've said and what I deal with it. I've shown her different documentaries and stuff on it as well too. And so she's really come to understand, not to say it doesn't still freak her out, because how could it not? If you see somebody, I'm 6'3", I'm 250 pounds. When you see a big guy like me standing up and screaming at the back door, like something's wrong, I'm pretty sure most people are going to get a little worried that something's wrong. So I completely get it, but it's good to know that there's people that understand and can cope with it and deal with it, because not everybody always is going to get it. And that's always been the tough part about it in general. So I do see we're hitting an hour and 20 minutes, because there's always lots to talk about. We will probably end up having this as part 2. We'll probably find a halfway point and put these out in 2 parts. For the Twitch viewers, YouTube, we will give you the full blown if you're watching us on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, all those lovely things. We're not going to push it too heavy here today because you're joining us for obvious reasons, but we will push the fact that, we can be reached. And, so can other people here at our local establishment as well, too. It really is like a family in so many ways. I am going to put this up here for you guys. This is not only our socials, but also our email here at our local establishment. And there's a lot of wonderful people here outside of the 3 of us. We have many great friends that join us many times on stream in different capacities. And they too have their battles with mental health at times. They do maybe have understood it from different aspects than what the 3 of us have done. But we're all here to listen to you guys. So whether you email us, you reach out through our social media or anything like that, everybody here wants to talk. Just like this, we do these recordings through StreamYard. Even if it ever comes down to it and you need someone you want to talk to face to face, this is a digital world and it helps more than you know. Texting, that's one thing. Phone calls are another. Sometimes just being there sitting with a friend could make a world of a difference. So I really encourage all of you guys out there to take the time to reach out to us here at our local establishment, or definitely reach out to those helplines that you saw in the video. As we leave here today, I will play the video as we exit out, so you guys can get that one more time. Make sure to do all that for sure. Before we start saying where you can reach out to us individually, though, I wanted to ask the 2 of you if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about here today on this particular episode of Love Your Health.
I don't have anything else to talk about, but I do have to, just emphasize that you are never alone in what it is that you're dealing with. You can always have somebody anywhere at any time to talk to. Don't hesitate to reach out, because we would rather talk to you and hear your story now than have to hear it at another time when you are no longer with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I will always say, like, be careful with what you say, because I had instances of like people telling me things that definitely stick to me no matter how much I try to take them away. I have people that they tell other people instead of telling me. It's like, hey, like, she's like portraying herself like a victim and things like that. And I was like, you don't realize that maybe that person's going through something, and you should instead of judging them that way, you should reach out to them and say, hey, I've noticed this is happening. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I would feel like more than anything, I would prefer somebody asking me that and saying, hey, I saw one of your tweets, and I saw one of your posts, or I saw this and I was concerned. I'd rather get that type of message than being judged by something when you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And like we said, it's like we're on screen, so like you see us be a certain way, but you don't know what's happening in our brains. Like I had moments of like, I've been working for 10-12 hours, but I still show up on screen here because this is what I signed up to do, and I feel like I fail if I don't show up. It happened to me with, like, for example, making an impact last week. I couldn't make it because I was working for so long, and you have no idea the guilt that I felt by not being on screen for one episode, and being able to like go back and forth with like Ed is like, Ed, can you cover for me? And it's like those little things bother me so much, because I'm thinking, this is my show, I should show up to my own show. But it's like one of those things, like sometimes you need to take that moment to like reassess. And I'm like, I kept thinking, I just worked a 12-hour shift. I've been at work since 6 a.m. So yeah, tonight's not the night for me to do the show. I'd rather go to bed and take that rest. So that's why it seems like you never know what's going behind the scenes. You see a certain thing on screen, but you don't get to see like the whole 100% of who we are. So before you judge somebody, reach out to them, because you never know what they're going through. And be careful with your words, because you never know how they're gonna feel to that person, especially somebody that has mental health issues. Like they might feel it, more like a different way than most people would. Like I said, I still have words of like other people have said to friends of mine about me that still mark me to the point of like I don't talk to those people, because I keep thinking I got judged by them, and this is how they think about me. And it's unfortunate that stuff like that happens when those are the same people that go online and post, oh, like this is the 1-800 suicide prevention line. It's like, you should you could have reached out to me instead of just posting things like that. So I would always say, like, be careful with what you say, and think about like this is another human being on screen. Think about it like somebody, while you're thinking of saying, think about somebody telling you that, how would you react? So think of like little things like that, because you never know how the other person's going to take it. And some people are no longer with us because somebody said words to them that they shouldn't have said, or they should have find a better way to say it and they didn't. So I would always say, like, don't judge people. You never know what they're going through. And definitely be careful with your words because sometimes they hurt more than you think.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. I know I
Mhm.
haven't always been perfect with how I choose my words, but I try to learn and adapt with time, and
Yeah.
I try to get to know people as much as I can. So I know how each person deals with things differently, so that I can, as a person, become better and more understanding as well too. And that's something that helps me with coping as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think this has been an amazing opportunity to spend some time with the two of you, get to know you a little bit more on a personal level. And I can't thank the two of you enough for choosing to do this, because this is not an easy thing to do ever, that kind of thing. And I'll stress it to everybody out there: reaching out is not always easy. So again, if you're a little worried about it, I understand. I've been there too, but it does make the world a difference, and we are seriously here for you guys to listen. We're going to go around the table, just mention, because of course we have a lot of stuff going on, and I want to know what
Mhm.
everybody has going on. So Mel, we're going to go to you first. What do you have going on? Where can people reach you?
So if you're wanting to follow me on social media, you can follow me on Twitter at Collins Melball, and you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Mastodon at Melball Collins. You can also catch me on Andre Melball's Wrestling Talk on YouTube. We've been dropping every Monday and Wednesday, but with the Best of the Super Juniors coming up, we're probably going to be dropping Monday, Wednesday, and Friday just to keep up with the volume of matches that we're going to have to be dealing with. We had some interesting predictions too on who we're going to win. Andre's shocked me the most, so you're probably going to want to pop over there and see what he said, because holy, left field for that one. And of course, Astrid and I also have the Ladies Wrestling Showcase going on her YouTube channel, which is awesome. We got some cool topics coming out on our next episode. Can't wait for that one.
Awesome. Astrid, how about yourself? What do you got going on?
You can find me mostly on my Twitter, like it's Astrid Pizarro, and my Instagram is Astrid Pizarro 20. Other than that, I always say on OLE trying to do everything that I can. But if you find me on social media, you can see I'm Tuesdays doing Taking Over with Ed. We chalk up, discuss NXT. On Thursdays, I do Making an Impact with Cody, discussing Impact Wrestling. Like Mel was just saying, I was going to say Melball, but Mel was just saying, Ladies Wrestling Showcase on Fridays. We try to do it every week, every 2 weeks, I guess, if we're gonna call it like that, on my YouTube and Twitch, and you can find us talking about women's wrestling there and just highlighting topics in women's wrestling altogether in the community there. But if you go on my YouTube channel, you'll definitely find not only those episodes that making an impact by my series called Astrid Ass. In every series, just discussing women's wrestling and women in the male dominated wrestling community. So yeah, I just have a few things getting planned for that too. And aside from that, like Bobby and I also work on Killer Cuts, talking about horror movies. So if you're the kind of person that uses horror movies as a coping mechanism, we're the show for you too.
Yeah, we sure are.
So,
And very glad you brought that up, because, of course, we are going to be recording a new chapter, as we like to call them, that will be recorded next week, with a short release coming up very, very soon for you guys. So if you enjoyed the first two, stay tuned. We got some sick new details for you on this latest chapter of Killer Cuts. In the meantime and in between time, as always, you can always find me bringing the party on Thursday nights with Papa Smokes for Ring Respect Radio, where we've got a lot of cool stuff planned over the next little bit. It's up in the air. We might have a guest tomorrow night. I announced one, but I haven't got. He did say to hold off. He might not be able to make it, so we might pull a 360. By the time you guys are seeing this, though, that'll have passed, so you might have seen him on there already. Working on a couple of other things. We're also going to maybe be talking a little bit about wrestling in Western Canada very soon. I know we talk a lot about the Saskatchewan side of things, but I think we might dip into the history of Western Canadian wrestling. We are also going to start a new program that Papa Smokes came up with, which is going to be a trip through the territories, and that's going to happen once a month on Ring Respect Radio, where we're going to do a deep dive into particular territories, particular bookers, some of the great matches, and some of the great wrestlers that came out of those particular eras of time. So looking forward to that. Then you got Bustin' Out. I do that on Sundays with Chris Parrish. It's the weekly wrap up to all things professional wrestling. We like to have guests, and oh boy, do we have guests coming up. And we've got some cool guests coming up. So it was just announced that on May the 21st, get excited, because we have the leader of the Beaumaye Fight Club. This is the second time I've got to be on screen with him, but Mr. Alex Kane, the #1 contender for the MLW World Heavyweight Championship, is going to be joining the Brunch Busters for a afternoon. That is going to be a fun time. But the week before that, I have just confirmed this, and more details will be coming. But someone who has started to work a little bit with Alex Kane, a gentleman by the name of Bougie, is going to be joining us on screen as well too. Bougie.
I thought you said Bushy, and I got super excited.
No, sorry.
Didn't know he spoke English.
No, this would be Bougie. Speaks English. Going to be joining us. I've been doing a lot of work recently with Alex Kane, so it's great that we're going to have them back to back, and a few other ones that we got in the works as well too. It's great because we're going to have great new things coming up here on OLE, an opportunity to work with a lot of the people who are currently here, and also some new faces that people are going to start seeing on screen very soon that we've got plans and works with and everything. I'm very excited that the gold standard Carl Carafel and I will be having season 3 of Beats and Beatdowns coming soon, hopefully. We got some planning to do. And then in August, we have mentioned it, we have our brand new show that's going to come out. Carl and I are going to be bringing you the all music review show, talking about the music that we grew up on and loved. It's going to be called Got the Pod Life, and we are actually going to be debuting this in August because we are make the first episode about the band Korn, which is Carl's #1 favorite band of all time. And it is exactly 25 years since the release of their Follow the Leader album. So I figured it was perfect timing. Ooh. And so both of us are big fans, but they are Carl's #1. So it's going to be great to be able to work with Carl doing that and get him to share his love for that band as well, too. Because Carl is very, very excited when he talks about Korn, so it's going to be a fun time. Much looking forward to what we got going up. So of course you guys can find me here throughout OLE throughout the week. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that kind of lovely stuff that you do for us. And as we leave you here, I am going to play that video one last time so that you guys have those helplines that you can reach out to if you're ever struggling. There's always somebody you can call. Make sure to do that. We love you. Take care, and we will see you guys very, very soon. Bye, everybody.